Munira, at the onset, I should say that I'm really not at all an urban studies kind of person, as Munira said. So I go, okay. I'm an anthropologist whose current research concerns questions of relatedness, ethics, and embodied obligations, it was still okay to call kinship in the previous millennium in the context of Palestinian refugee camps and gatherings, so that is unofficial camps on the outskirts of the city of Tyre in southern Lebanon. So I'm grateful to Mona Fawaz for the invitation to participate in this debate, and I apologize in advance if and when there is something naive in what I'm about to say. The demand to rethink informality at multiple scales can be understood in many different ways, but one way in which it can be understood and one way in which me as an anthropologist I would understand it, it's the necessity to evaluate very carefully the capacity of our concepts and categories of analysis to travel across different contexts. As an anthropologist, I think that it also means evaluating the capacity of our categories of analysis to descend into local life worlds. In other words, the concern here is whether our categories of analysis, in this case informality, can find any currency or traction in the social worlds they purport to account for. So this is the line of inquiry I'm going to briefly pursue here. Elisabeth Povinelli, who's an anthropologist who teaches at Columbia University, says that anthropology has a role in contributing to what she calls a politics of the thick life, in which the density of social representation is increased to meet the density of actual social worlds. In a sense, this is what I'm trying to contribute here to this debate. In the background of what I'm going to say, there are 2 years I spent living with a family in a refugee camp in Tyre. In the background of what I'm about to say, there are the conversations I heard and participated in during these 2 years, and I should acknowledge at the onset that there is something very tentative, suggestive, and unfinished to the remarks I'm about to make. Let me start by saying that I think that my friends and interlocutors in the camps of Tyre would express some ambivalence upon hearing that informality is the label under which we discuss their lives and material worlds, or rather, and maybe more accurately, their reaction would probably vary depending on how I translate the term, since I cannot think of one which would adequately capture all the aspects or dimensions that informality, as I understand, is meant to gather in when, like, urban studies people use it. And when I say I'm not able to find like one term to translate it adequately in this way, it includes, after an extensive exploration of the matter, with my wife, who grew up in one of the Palestinian camps in Beirut. So there is an interesting question of translation here, and by translation I mean not only the translation from English to Arabic, but also, and more profoundly, the translation from theoretical idiom to ordinary language, that is, language shaped by and embedded in a specific form of life, and by form of life I mean like tacit and collective agreements about a specific project of world making. So here the question of translation puts the onus on us academics to clarify what we mean when we speak of informality. And in my case, if I think of finding a translation of the term for the camps of Tyre, it would mean thinking carefully about the meaning of the privative prefix in what it covers exactly, what kind of privation or absence are we speaking of here, as well as like thinking carefully about the stem form, what kind of forms are we observing the absence when we speak of informality. Ein is a hopeless, illegal, yani. Okay, or re rasmi, more euphemistic, unofficial. So the informal, if this is what we mean by the informal, in this sense, the term would have a limited descriptive traction in the camps and gatherings of Tyre, in the sense that indeed, actually, there are like pieces of the house for which people can produce the forms that they filled or that they received when they put them into places, and there are also other pieces of the house for which it's not possible to do so. So, like here, the translation actually would reveal, interestingly, a very varied landscape, because the picture of refugee camps or even gatherings as evolving in a juridical and procedural void is inaccurate. Overall, it would be more accurate to speak of the ebb and flow of the application of rules emanating from like various institutional agents which have shaped these camps. So that would be I mean, a first observation, but then I should immediately add to that like my Palestinian interlocutors in the camps of Tyre are not too fond of having their lives and material world described as illegal, and so, I mean, informal / illegal, which is not very surprising. Here, the point is that there is something deeply fraught in using the language of the law when not everybody stands in an equal relation to the law, contrary to what the modern liberal imaginary of how the law operates assume. So it's a simple remark, but it has far-reaching implications, and at least maybe it helps to explain why, for my interlocutors in the camps of Tyre, illegal, I mean, rare sharia is never, can never be a descriptive label only. It's a phrase that presents itself to them as immediately packed with a certain performative force. To them, actually, the language of the law appears for actually what it actually is in a refugee context, that is, a vocabulary that can be used formally to describe some of their practices of dwelling as crime, even though, like, even when they were not in the position to stand as equal subjects in front of the law. So what I mean here is that my interlocutors in the camps of Tyre are sharply aware that the use of the vocabulary of the informal / illegal in this respect organizes and potentially threatens or puts into question their access to a variety of resources, means of washing oneself and washing one's clothes, means of like removing wastewater, means of feeding oneself properly through the ability to store and cook food, means of protecting oneself from the health impacts of dust or like domestic hazards. Not all refugees share an equivalent relationship to such resources. Here again, we would find a very varied landscape in the camps and gathering of Tyre. Actually, there are many refugees who secured quite successfully an access to such resources, but we could also find, especially in the gatherings, that is unofficial camps, where this performative power of the language of like the illegal organizes the distribution of the unequal distribution of resources I just mentioned. So where this performative power is in full force, so that like we end up with lives and bodies weakened or enervated because such resources are not ready at hand, and everyday life is a process of exhaustion that happens below like a certain threshold of awareness. So my first point here when I speak of ambivalence towards maybe what we mean by informality, it's or if there is a gap between our category of analysis and like local ordinary language, here it's perhaps because the privative prefix in is too simple to describe the complex relation of their spaces of dwelling to a variety of laws, and in fact too simple to describe the complex workings of like formalities in their lives, and the fact that we are not speaking of zones which are outside of the law, but zones which actually have a much more complex and dynamic relation to the law. And second point, maybe also I imagine in any case that the category of informality might be a little bit too weak or too tame to capture in some cases the reach of such processes, that in the sense that we are not speaking only of the production of space here, but we are speaking literally of the production of like corporeal substance, bodies weakened by the unavailability of certain basic conditions of life. So that was a first set of remarks. And then a second way to go to, like in my exploration of how we could translate the informal in the ordinary language of Thayer, it would be to start by saying that when we academics speak of informality, we use this word to name a certain kind of potential. Here, the privative prefix in speaks not to the absence of conformity with procedures that qualify like somebody for other ethical goods, but rather the absence or lifting of an obstacle that allow for the actualization of a certain potential. For example, it seems to me that this is what we middle-class academics mean when we say, like, let's have an informal meeting to find a solution to this or that problem in the department. The profound intuition here is that when certain formal procedures are suspended or avoided, a potential for social life maybe to self-organize differently can release itself outside of the bonds of sedimented convention. Urban studies, if I understand well, use the concept of informality also in this way, to name a potential unique to these zones of abandonment for elaborating and experimenting with possibilities of other ways of doing the urban or doing the city. So in what directions would the search for a vernacular translation would take us if we take informality in this sense? So very quick remarks to finish. If we fix on the literal meaning, like the informal as that which is without decorum, I could point to the life in language of interesting phrases such as Ibn al-Mukhayyam or Bent al-Mukhayyam, so a son of the camp or a daughter of the camp, so an interesting phrase because there is here a claim to kinship with a certain kind of space. In my observation, such labels are often used as a device of recognition between interlocutors who do not necessarily know each other, but like conjure up on the spot a certain register of sociality upon finding out that they both were born in refugee camps. I mean, basically, if you and I are sons of the camp, we can do away with like certain forms of sociality that we maintain when we are outside of the camps. So it's a vocabulary that indeed seems to associate a space with a register of sociality characterized by a certain directness or absence of forms. But to this, I must immediately add that Ibn al-Mukhayyam, in such cases, functions not so much as a shifter from like formal sociality to like the absence of social formalities, but rather it functions as a shifter from one set of social manners to another. What I mean by that is that Anybody who has set foot in the camps or lived there will easily recognize, I think, that camp sociality is hardly informal. In fact, some of my interlocutors would say that to be Ibn al-Mukhayyam or Bent al-Mukhayyam, it implies in part to be mu'addab, so to abide by a certain code of adab or manners, which are considered, if not unique, at least very strongly associated with the camp. So that actually elet adab, so informality in the sense of like a lack of manners would be much more a label appropriate to like the space, I mean social spaces outside of the camp in this view. So when I speak of the adab or the formality of camp life here, what I mean, what I have in mind, it's a very large set of minute bodily practices and disciplines that constitute the background conditions of life in the camps of the South. Background conditions actually, practices and disciplines that actually govern the production of locality in the camps, and that go from who can go where, with whom, and at what time, in what kind of outfit, to where to look at when you knock at the door, to how to properly set up one's domestic space, and many other things. There are three important points here, I think. First, these forms, this formality of camp life is critical because it allows, in my view, the camp to define itself as a moral community as opposed to just a political or even a biopolitical community. Second point, I think, in my view, also ultimately these formalities revolve around or come down to a certain articulation of the private and the public. That is, they consist in enacting a split of one's life between a private component and a public component. My point here is that actually this divide between the public and the private, which as people like Foucault showed, is so central to modern power, precisely, one sense at which, at least in which camps are like stateless societies, it's in the sense that actually this divide between the private and the public is not regulated by the modern state in the camps. And so I think, in my view, refugees actually do the private and the public in a very different ways from like full citizens of modern states. And finally, these forms, I should add that these forms provide a criterion by which the camp also stratifies itself morally or ethically. I'm speaking here of a stratification between respectable camp dwellers, so those who abide by these forms, those who enact like the split I mentioned between a private and public existence, and those who don't. A failure to abide by these disciplines or a refusal to carefully enact such a split in the way which is expected, in my experience, is a straight road to social marginalization in camp society. Of course, there is a certain cruelty to camp life here, because if we remember what I said in my first point, if your life and if your body is exhausted by just, carrying on the everyday life, if water is hard to come by, for example, to wash your clothes, and so on and so forth, your ability to enact such a split is reduced. But in my view, camp morality makes little room for this kind of considerations or excuses. So to conclude this second point, here again, I think what this kind of exploration reveals, it's a certain equivocity of the category of informality here in relation to the life world of camp residents, because maybe informality is not the best label to capture and honor the discrete decorum of camp life and what's at stake in it. And at the same time, that this decorum, like the formality of camp life, speaks to the endurance of a way of being together in the world which is different. I think actually it's true, and that yes, it is not wrong-headed in this sense to see the camps as spaces of a certain kind of potential. To wrap it up, if there is a lesson to this kind of exploration, and if I am not too off track in the sketchy manner in which I conducted it, what I would say that what these gaps and at the same time passages between our category of analysis and the ordinary language of camps and gatherings reveal something which is significant in the sense that when we speak of informality, at least in this context, we would be speaking of a very complex and unstable entanglement of politics, ethics, aesthetics, and even the life of the body, okay? Or to put it, in other words, very complex and unstable entanglements of powers, ideas of the good life or the life worth living, sensory emotional values, and physical stamina. And so, in my view, the challenge in thinking informality at multiple scales, it would lie partly in not losing sight of this complexity, of this thickness, when we make the category informality travel across different contexts. Thank you.